Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Series with Kevin, where we add value to people's lives, happening every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 12 on ebizradio.com. You can catch the Lunchtime Series on all our major podcast channels. And for our coaching segment today, we've got the executive coaching, leadership development, and consulting business mentor to the coaches and accredited with the ICF and Commensa, Colleen Jack from the Pattern Works. Good morning, Colleen, or how are you?
Hi, Kevin. Thank you for having me on today.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, and thanks for making some time. When we first engaged, we had such a fantastic conversation. I was like, no, we definitely have to have you on the show. And I'm glad it's taken some time, but we finally got here.
Absolutely. And so my privilege to be here, and what an exciting adventure that we can go on.
So, I mean, Colleen, today I want to start off with first, don't you want to tell people more about you, about what you do, and a bit of background about you?
Sure. So I've been in the coaching environment since 2008. I focus on executive coaching. My approach is very holistic. And so, of course, it does include your life. And, systemically, I'm not coaching just the person in the room, but the system that they sit in. In 2009, I developed a leadership development program that we took into corporates. It's modular, which gives corporates an opportunity to choose just a couple, depending on what their outcomes are, or to go on the whole program. And in 2013, that program was benchmarked by the ICF, the International Coaching Federation, for something that they call the Prism Awards. And so we've got some fantastic returns on investment and return on engagement out of that program in terms of what works to create permanent positive change in teams and organizations. And then in the last while, I coach more globally. So thank goodness for some blessings that have come out of COVID. And part of that has been understanding that coaches can coach well online. And so I do sit on a couple of panels globally and coachees of panels.
Fantastic. Amazing. So, I mean, to preface today's conversation, when we first chatted, we had a few areas that we could chat about. And I mean, you have this expanse of coaching behind your name and, your experience in it. But don't you want to preface today and sort of give us an idea of what we're chatting about?
So coaching has become popular. And I feel very strongly that as professional coaches, we do have a couple of responsibilities. And one is how we continue to develop ourselves as coaches, how we educate clients on what good coaching is, and why we do affiliate with bodies like Commensa or ICF or the various other bodies.
Yeah. So, for that first question is, I'm one of those guys that need a coach. I'm wanting to start my coaching career. What is the first point of reference? Like, how do I do this? What am I doing? What am I looking for? How do I know that, I'm going to be working with this person, and what should I be looking for in a coach?
So, a couple of things: get referrals. So ask your mates, go into your HR environment and ask who has received coaching and get a good referral. Then do a good web search. Web search that coach, see if they're on LinkedIn, see if they've got a website, and then do a chemistry test. And, your body will never lie to you. How does it feel when you chat to that coach? A professional coach, you can expect to have certifications and accreditations. And so what's the difference? I can be a certified coach with 62 hours worth of training. That doesn't necessarily make me a good coach. I want to know what the coach's background is in terms of their life history and, what's given them the emotional intelligence to be a good coach. And so when you start differentiating between coaches who have got a certification and coaches who've got an accreditation, what that means is their certifications through a professional body like the ICF will have been vetted. And then ICF will say, yes, we recognize that coach training as good coach training, or submit evidence of the coach training that you've had. And then to become accredited is you will have gone through a process of a knowledge appraisal questionnaire and various different hoops to jump through to show that you are worthy of an accreditation with the ICF or Commence or whoever.
Yeah. And what I find interesting is that you mentioned your body will speak to you.
Yes.
So from a perspective of someone who's never done this, for example,
Yes.
what does that mean? What do you mean by your body will speak to you?
Yeah, great question. And so I have made the assumption that you've listened to your guts, especially at an executive level. You might call it intuition or your guts or whatever, but trust that you've got some sense of, yeah, this feels legit. This feels good and good chemistry. And I feel I can trust this person, or gosh, that's interesting. I could even feel quite challenged by this person, and it's good. No one has really ever asked me such a direct question, and I feel safe in answering it. And I feel a bit stretched, but I feel good in answering it.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that supervision, right? And so why is it important for coaches to be supervised and continued professional, like personal development happening? Why do they need to go through that process, and why is it so important for the coach to be at a level all the time?
So coaching is still evolving as a profession, and with these federations and bodies, we have recognized that a good coach is always on a learning edge, whether it's professional development or personal development. And so if you are an accredited coach, much like most other professionals, you will have to submit a certain amount of continued professional development points in a 3-year cycle. And so we are looking at coaches who have not, got a qualification and stopped there. We're looking for lifelong learning. As we've evolved in a profession, we have started to recognize the importance of supervision. And so what that means is not somebody hanging over your shoulder going, oh, you could have done that better. It's about being in a supervisory group where you have intervision. So into your practice, somebody else looking at it going, gosh, that's amazing. Or, what are the resources you need? Or where are you feeling stretched as a coach? And so supervision will look after coaches in their own blind spots. And so a good coach will recognize that they're in a coaching session and things just don't get moving. Or they feel triggered by a coachee in a session. Or they feel that they don't have enough resources, various reasons. And they would then go into supervision, firstly by saying to their coachee, I realize that I'm lacking something here. Do I have your permission? And when I have your permission, that means that I will take this into supervision and not mention your name or the company you're with or your associates. And so we can guarantee a coachee's confidentiality by saying this is a person who works in financial services in a bank at this level. And I give no details of whether they are female, male, he, she, they, anything like that. Supervision will give you also the insight from your peer group. And so if you had to pay for one-on-one sessions with the individuals in that peer group, it would become incredibly expensive. So supervision is a very cheap way of having the best resources and in reciprocity. I also use supervision one-on-one. So if I know that this is a big topic and I don't really want to detract from the group, I would then take it into one-on-one. And I can also say, as an executive coach who puts panels together for organizations, I would insist that a coach is in supervision. Otherwise, I would not put them on the panel.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And there's a reason for that. Sorry.
Yeah, so please tell us.
So part of it is looking after the coach and the client's outcomes, but also that if we are doing a big piece of work for an organization, that as coaches, we are likely to pick up parallel processes. And so what happens in the system in the organization is likely to mirror within the coaching panel. And so astute coaches will catch those parallel processes. And of course, if there's transference in the system. And so it's a fantastic way of looking at the client's outcomes and really being robust in the client's outcomes so that we can catch on what's going on unconsciously in the organization system very carefully and make it conscious and work on that within the teams and within the coaching.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah. So, I mean, also one of the questions that a lot of people may not understand is the differences between a certification and an accreditation. Like, what are the specific differences between those two?
So, a certification is that you have done a coaching course. They vary in length, but the average is about 62 hours, and that may be spread over a few months or 3 days. Who knows how they've made up those 62 hours. And that says, yes, you completed this training. The difficulty is, as a professional coach, that doesn't necessarily make you a professional coach. And so the bodies like Commensa or RCF have developed an accreditation. That means that they vet you as a coach for the coaching hours that you've done. And so there are normally 3 levels of accreditation: an entry level, a middle level, and then a master level. And at entry level, you have a minimum amount of hours, paid and pro bono. And you will have a mentor observe you as a coach, and you will then make a submission for your coaching log, your certificates that you have attended, how many coachees you've actually coached, and how many hours you've coached. They'll also usually do a knowledge appraisal questionnaire, or they will ask you to submit various essays. The benefit about being accredited is that once we've become coaches, we work in confidentiality. And so no one actually ever observes us. And just like anything, like driving, we can develop bad habits. We get into our sort of zone, and this is the way we coach. And so an accreditation process, as much as it feels unbelievably unnatural to have somebody observe your coaching, it keeps you sharp. And it polishes you, and it gives you insight from a mentor who's been a little bit further down the road with you to say, those were fantastic questions. This is what you do brilliantly as a coach. And normally it's around some core competencies. The various federations will have core competencies, and they require you to meet part of those core competencies, if not all of those competencies, in a coaching session. And so a good mentor will also give you stretch opportunities. And so every 3 years, if you are going to go through an accreditation, you would then do a renewal every 3 years, and every 3 years you'd have 10 hours of mentor coaching where somebody's observed you for the RCF. It's different with Commensa. And so I mentor coaches at the ACC level, the entry level for RCF, and I evaluate coaches for Commensa at the master level. So I do both ends of the spectrum. And it is a fantastic opportunity to just get better as coaches and really get masterful in those questions that bring good outcomes to coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the biggest questions that I think so many people, and this is something we touched on when we first chatted, was there are so many coaches in the world right now, and like everyone now is a coach. And so absolutely, having the accreditation there, having the certifications there, it's definitely stuff that people need to start checking on and making sure that that's in place with choosing a coach, because then that there's far more credibility to this person than someone who's just had a nice certification, right? And there's nothing wrong with certifications. That's that's great, because it adds to what it is you're learning and wanting to share. But where is the coaching? Where is coaching as a as a career path, as a vocation going to in the future? And, coming from where I think it's 26 years now,
No.
it's been a while, right?
Yeah.
You've been in this industry for so long and seen how it's evolved and moving and shifting. Where is coaching going to, and what are we looking forward to in the future?
It's going delicious places. And so I can remember when I first started being a coach, somebody at a lunch table said to me, "So you're an adult babysitter?" I was like, no, not quite.
Not exactly, no.
So where coaching's going is you'll find more and more of your clientele are educated around what coaching is, and more people will understand if you have a specific niche, like an executive coach or a somatic coach or a life coach or a spiritual coach. There are lots and lots of niches that are developing with highly, highly authoritative people who are accredited. And so your clients can say, "Oh, I want to do a piece of work around my career," and go to a career coach. What's evolved, and it has been accelerated by COVID, is recognizing that coaching can be done online. And it is different from face-to-face, but it's no less effective. There are lots of coaching apps that are now happening where there's an AI person in the back, or an AI
robot
in the back. Yeah. And it will get you so far. Nothing will ever replace the insight of a masterful coach. Where we are also going, and we can see this with where the ICF are going, is recognizing that there is going to be more team coaching online. And so the ICF at the moment are working on a team coaching competencies for the core competencies that are going to be slightly different than the one-on-one competencies. And they are looking at developing the exams for an accredited team coach. And so the skill sets that you would have as a team coach are different than one-on-one. And you might find people who do both or one or the other. So team coaching is definitely coming into our sphere and will definitely be face-to-face and online. And more platforms. I mean, you're going to find that a lot of organizations use a specific platform, and they rely on that platform to have vetted coaches who will fit the criteria, who are accredited, who are up to date in their CPD points. And so you'll find that as coaches, I think it's going to become more difficult to get organizational work, where organizations will have a bespoke solution from a panel.
Yeah.
And there's some fantastic panels out there doing some very, very exciting work with some fantastic individuals in the background, more than anyone as a single person provider to organizations would have in the background.
I think that also makes it, for me, being in a coaching perspective or being in a coaching position, I always feel like, wow, I've worked so hard at getting my experience and working through stuff and having those hours and then being sort of what do you call it? What is it? So like, compared to someone who hasn't done that, and you're kind of going, sure, but how is that fair, basically? So from a coach's perspective, it's really important to have those accreditations and certifications in place, because I think it's true. When you get to working with a corporate, that there should be a certain amount of something that they leverage or they sort of measure you by. It's because then it keeps you as the coach really on the forefront of learning and sharing and informing.
So I'm going to flip this a little bit then also, and be a little bit provocative. I work with some incredible coaches who are not accredited and not aligned to federations. And why do I trust them? And there's a famous statistic from the Sherpa coaching, and they do some great studies. And the average is that only 3% of coaches worldwide will earn their full income off coaching. So you'll find that people who have become coaches with a background in with previous careers, so like this is my second career, will still consult in their first career. And so if somebody is not accredited, I would look at how long they've lasted in the industry.
Yeah.
Because this industry, as you say, is flooded by new coaches all the time.
Mm.
And the staying power is tremendous if you are surviving and thriving and not accredited. And so, yeah, not everyone is accredited. That's brilliant. And they have their various reasons for not being accredited.
So to that point, it's a good thing when people are accredited, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best coach, or they're not a great coach because they're not. So
Yeah.
having those two, and it's a great reference point that people need to use. It's like getting more information about this person. Absolutely, love that.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people saying, I'm not going to use a young coach who's like only 23. What do they know about their life?
Yes.
And I mean, I'm mentoring somebody at the moment for an accreditation, and she is very young, and my gosh, I would trust her with my children's lives.
Yeah.
And she has done a huge amount of personal work in her young life, and she is not cluttered by life. She is very, very clear. And so, is she effective as a young woman coach? Absolutely. And I know some very, mature coaches who are not mature at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
So trust your gut.
What's the major difference between the ICF and the ICR, International Coaches Federation, International Coaches Registrar?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
So I don't know the ICR well enough, but what I would say is that the one is a register and the other one is a federation that accredits coaches.
Okay.
What is your knowledge around the two?
It's still a governing body, so there's also a part of a lot of evidence that you have to be able to register with them. But I think it's the criteria is less stringent as the ICF compared to so I think it's but it's also a recognized international sort of body that you can belong to. So I mean, just how do you become an accredited coach with these professional bodies? Like, do you want to just touch on some of the processes and stuff we have to go through as the coach? You're going to have to do some homework.
Yes. And so firstly, when you choose your coach training provider, ask who they are affiliated with. And so when I started studying back in the late 2007, 2008, I studied with people who I felt a kinship to, and I liked the methodology. And then when I wanted to become accredited, I realized that none of the training that I had done was recognized by the ICF.
Oh.
Oops. So was it valuable? Oh, absolutely. It was completely valuable. I mean, the first training I went with was South African-based and CETA accredited with the NQF requirements. ICF recognized none of that.
Oh, wow.
So in about 1,000 hours of training, they recognized 200. That was an expensive lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely who the people you are getting your accreditation with. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You will also have to do a knowledge appraisal questionnaire, and it's 70 questions. You get a 3-hour window to do it, and you have to get 70% minimum to pass. And once you've passed your knowledge appraisal questionnaire, you do not have to do it again in a renewal.
But very, very, very nice to have. And
Yep.
Once you've gone through it, you know that you know your stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, last question on why do people out there need coaches? Like, just as a, because I'm like, where we know why we need coaches. We do this all the time. I have a few that I often speak to or need to bounce some information off. But why is it essential that people out there, just in your opinion, like, need a coach?
So let's differentiate first the difference between coaching and therapy.
Yeah.
And the easiest definition is that therapy goes back into your past and will review your past and move forward. Coaching is future-based. And so it's about where do you want to be in your life? And so although it's not therapeutic, you may still well find that healing comes from coaching. I use various different coaches, much like you, for various different reasons. And that goes to what is a coach's speciality, what is their niche. So I would use coaches if you're having an absolutely fantastic time in your career and you can just see your future and going, oh, I can see it, I just don't know how to get there yet. I would use a coach for that. I would use a coach if you're having an absolutely horrible time in your career and you have a monster of a boss and you realize that that's not leadership and you go, okay, so the leadership's not going to change. How do I get into the career that I feel I can stretch into? Coaching is the wisdom that we would have had if we had families that were still units. And so where would you sit at the wisdom of the elders' feet and get the kind of insights that would square root my life and just make my life so much easier, where I could make these incredible hyper leaps into my future. And so if you have fantastic eldership, wonderful, speak to your elders. But often we don't. And often elders haven't done the personal work, and so they're stuck. A coach will create flow in your life, will create success awareness, and how you define success is not necessarily financially, but in my beingness with my family, in my experience of my team. Coaching brings you freedom. And let's just be very, very specific here. Freedom is an internal process, not an external process.
Yes, absolutely. And then lastly, any sort of wisdom for anyone listening that's aspiring to be a coach? What would your wisdom there be to just share with them to maybe consider?
So coaches tend to be incredibly generous and for the good of humankind. And so get yourself into a network of fantastic supportive coaches. I believe in sharing things freely as long as you credit the originator. And, coaches like me will share what are the online panels. How do you get onto those online panels? What are the nice pro bono panels to work on globally where we can actually say, I'm working with the UN's global goals? Mature coaches will share lots and lots of resources with young coaches, absolutely freely. And so just get in touch with a coach that is walking their talk. And they will most likely give you an incredible amount of resources and support and tips on how to actually make your business successful and what works for them. And, that's part of getting into an accreditation will put you in touch with a mentor who will put a group together of peers. And, there's then rich and fantastic sharing in those peer groups. Absolutely. And if you're going to be paying dollars for an accreditation or a membership, leverage the memberships. Make it work.
Absolutely. I love that. Colleen Jack, it's Colleen Jack's from Patternworks, guys, executive coaching, leadership development, consulting business, and mentor to coaches accredited with the ICF and Commensa. Colleen, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing some insights and some information on this. If we have to get hold of you, where do we go? What's the quickest way?
LinkedIn, Colleen Jack, Jack, or Colleen at patternworks.co.za. And thank you so much for this opportunity to talk on something I'm very passionate about.
Absolutely. Thank you for making some time and joining us. And we want to have you back. So come back and share more. Thank you.
With pleasure. Tell me the topic and I'll be there.
Awesomeness. Chat to you soon. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.